Good evening and welcome to my presentation on post release rehabilitation for men. Now, before we start, let's get a brief understanding of what we're trying to achieve out here. That's the most important thing. I guess that's why we are all here. So, if you know, let's just go a few years back, and if you understand the prison system, it was just a place to punish people for their crimes. It had nothing to do with you do the crime, you do the time. That was the basic understanding of the notion. But there was no prospect of rehabilitation. There was nothing in practice or in place that would help them to change their ways. So that wasn't there. So until late 70s, when people started change, okay, that is not helping because people are just it's prison was more like a revolving door for all the prisoners. They're going out and coming right back in. So that wasn't helping the society at all. So the government around the world started thinking, what can we do? And that was pioneered by mostly by the Europeans and especially by the Scandinavian nations. Now they came up with the idea that prisoners could be rehabilitated provided they are given the right training. Hence they start all over the world with a concept that we need to change our prison system. And hence it started to be called rather than prison a correctional center. So which basically means to correct the ways of prison. That gave rise to our prison system as we know today, and hence it's all called correctional center. We are here in Victoria. Now, Victoria also had a similar problem. Uh, we have a lot of people in prison. We've got about 9,000 people currently in jails across Victoria, and that's an increase of 85% as compared to 10 years ago. And of that 9,700 are women. It is estimated 5% of the 50% of those people will return back to jail within the next 18 months. This is despite what we have in place right now. I know it's a very new concept at the moment, but probably jails have the rehabilitation programs, but still, we still have the 50% people coming right back in after 18 months. And of the other 50% who are outside, 18% of that will come back to court system, but they'll not come back to jail, but serve a CCO or community corrections order. So either way, a whopping 68% do not change their ways, and it costs. Not many people realize it, but it costs a Victorian taxpayer $350 a day to keep one prisoner in jail. Hence, there's more need with the rising number of prisoners in the jail, and that kind of cost per day the government had to think of a way to make sure that we don't over budget it, and more importantly, we find a way to make to have the prisoners away from prison and live a good life in the society. Of 9,000 people in jail currently, 26% of them identify themselves as Aboriginal or Torres Islanders, and that is still a very high number as compared to the last decade. Number has gone down, but it is still high for Aboriginal and Torres Islanders. Now we need to understand the risk factors. What are the risk factors associated with people coming in and out of jail all the time? It's people go out, they are an addict, they abuse substance, so they go and commit crime again, or they get high, or they commit a crime, they get injured, brain injuries, addiction, a very big problem with criminals, especially in prison system. Over 70% have problem with one or another form of addiction or substance abuse. There's a lot of self-harm because of prolonged use of alcohol and drugs and living a lonely life. They are very prone to depression and self-harm. And with crime comes the negative side of the life as well, which is a lot of fighting. Either you attack somebody or somebody attacks you. So those are the problems and needs. Now, what we need to find out is how do we change a person who's been doing this sort of thing all their life and help them to see the right path per se. So goals that we have set ourselves for the moment is once people are released from prison or they're on parole or they're on CCOs, we try to find employment. When they're in prison, they're already in training. They're in training. They're working in industries where they're making chairs, tables, or they're working in prison kitchen. They're working in bakery. So we try and pair them up with what they're interested in, find a job for them, or the lollipop guys, traffic controllers. So we try and find them employment. Number one. Number two, very very important, is drug and alcohol counseling. It has to be ongoing support. Being locked up inside a prison, not having access to alcohol and drugs, it's easy. But what do you do when you're outside? How do you control yourself there? So counseling outside prison is more important. And three, a lot of people keep claiming that I'm being set up to fail because I've got nowhere to go. And fair enough. That's why we want to make sure that people who are released from prison have somewhere to call it a home or at least a shelter. They're not left out in the street high and dry. Now, these people, they've almost all their life, they live more or less like rough on the street or crammed in with groups of other men getting high. So we want to teach them how the healthy way of living, how to budget, how to think, what to look for when you're shopping rather than just grabbing things. And we want to give them an access where they can find cheap household items and meals, and so they can buy because they don't have a lot of money to start with. Another thing that we want to do is give them a 24/7 access to peer support network. There are a lot of prisoners who change their ways, and they can be a very very good role model, especially the young ones. So we need to find a way to connect those people together, and this base will do that. Now, these are goals that we've divided between our existing coalition of partners. For example, housing and employment will be handled by Melbourne City Mission and Salvation Army. Alcohol and drugs counseling by professional clinicians from Corrections Victoria. They have a whole army of counselors and motivators who help to do that. Peer support network, which we can get from it's in-house, but it's again sourced from prison system, ex-prisoners who've changed their ways, and healthy living programs that we do it from our social uh, various professionals on social living that we source it, but we are always more than because Melbourne City Mission and Salvation Army, they already have ongoing program, something very similar on healthy living, that sort of area. So we'll be seeking their help, but more or less it'll be our in-house from our own experts. Now the procedures, how the whole system works. The whole system works around case management model. So before a prisoner is accepted prisoner or one who's come out of CCO is accepted, the file comes to us. We sit along with MCM, Salvation Army, and definitely a medical professional, especially if they have ABIs or addiction problems. With the case manager, they decide on look at the file, read the history, and then decide, okay, we're going to take this. We can work with this client. We take it. Once the client comes in, first thing, case management meeting. That's when the client talks about his or her issues, what they're interested in, what issues they've got, what problems they've got. and the case manager makes a referral for all the required people from there. That is followed by the programs and counseling. So, what sort of programs a person needs to enroll in? What programs do we have in place? What counseling services do we have for his requirement? When can we do it? Because employment is one thing that we have to. So obviously, this counseling program attendance has to work around his job after his job hours. And secondly, how far does he live, or where have you managed to find accommodation for him? How far it is from our center? So we have to work our way around that. Third thing that we have is, especially if people are living far away, we have online Zoom session or phone session, phone support, so they can call anytime, we can talk. If they can't come to the class, they can look at it on Zoom. So for that, we've got a very strong partnership with Telstra for a good internet connection and Zoom and other IT supports. And because it's revolves around prison and corrections Victoria, confidentiality is very important. So we have to understand the confidentiality of the case of our client is extremely important, and everything, especially with the drugs and alcohol use, the crime history, it has to be all confidential. It cannot be let out. So timetable for this program is, we call it a 6 month program. So, and after 6 month, 4 month, we want to ensure that they work for at least 4 months so that they have a stable sort of, they're off. Normally probation period is 3 months, so they're off the probation period, and they have a little bit of saving that they can rent somewhere in a shared accommodation or something, that but they are more self-reliant. And also within that time period, we want to make sure that they complete at least 2 months program of alcohol and drugs counseling or other support programs as required. A location for our office is at Ravenhall, which is very close to a hub of three major prisons in Victoria. We want to do that, and we want this training to be programs to be more inclusive of the prisoners, because we've seen in the past a lot of programs being conducted where they've been told what to do rather than understand what they want to do. And our research has shown that 70% of people will only complete the program, rest 30% will drop out. They might have initial motivation, but then gets dropped out and their past life catches up to them. And we can also see that of the 70% who complete, 20% will not, only 20% will not return back to prison within the next 24 months. Rest will come back to court or prison system. It is a work in progress, and as they say in process of rehabilitation, relapse is a part of the process. So it is an ongoing battle. Now we have a lot of, because this is a very technical field with a lot of counseling, a lot of motivation, a lot of medical issues, a lot of psychology. So we have a panel of experts from, exactly, especially peer workers who are not an experts, but they are very experienced. They know what it's like to be in prison. They know what it's like to be an addict. They know what it's like to be committing crime to support their habit. And we also have a lot of medical professionals, a lot of psychologists, and social and community experts from Melbourne City Mission and Salvation Army, who will be speaking to them, will be doing one-on-one sessions or in group sessions. And we also have panel of employers. Normally people with a personal criminal background, it's very hard to find a job for them. There are very few employers who give them a second chance. So we have a panel of those who are willing to give them a second chance. So they come in, they talk to them and see who they need and hire them, interview them. So that's a process that's still in the making, still happening. We're fine-tuning that process, but it's happening. Now, key personal people who are associated with this organization, that's myself, Roger Mahat. I'm the managing director of New Horizon. We've got John Smith, who is a senior programs coordinator from Melbourne City Mission. Dr. Helen, she's a doctor with AOD specialist. Andrew White, he's a recovered alcoholic. He's a peer worker that has been in prison system for about 10 years. Is now has been out of prison for 5 years. Is working. Recently married and has a daughter. Harold Snow, who is from Salvation Army, who looks after homelessness, provides accommodation, and those sort of things. And we have Zara McLeay. She's our employment recruiter. So she coordinates with all the employment agencies, presents our client to them, and see what we can achieve for them. Now, what are the barriers that we have for this project at the moment? Because it's a new initiative by the Corrections Victoria, our biggest barrier is obviously to get funding from Corrections Victoria for it, because this has been tried within the prison rehabilitation process, for especially if they have 3-4 months left before they get released. So there are programs, but there hasn't been any programs once they get released. This was normally handled by other social organizations like NGOs like Melbourne City Mission and Salvation Armies in the past. But now Corrections Victoria want to do it themselves. So finance is still an issue, but because of the enthusiasm from the government of Victoria, we have managed to get commitment for 1 year funding, but it's a 4-year program initially to see where we stand, how much do we make a change in society. So 1 year we have got a commitment for 1 year, but we'll have to try again for the second year and so on and so forth. Resources wise, we have excellent support from Salvation Army and Melbourne City Mission. And they've got relations with other good companies. So anything that needs to be printed out, we do need a lot of printouts for brochures, for booklets, for our program, those sort of things. So they have a good both in-house and they have a network of printers that they can help, or other supporting men that can help us with. With staffing, all are embedded as per Correction Victoria standard, and having doctor as key personnel who handle all the medications and counseling based on their behavior or past history. It is very helpful so the program can be designed more as per to suit their requirement rather than to suit our requirement. At the end of the day, it's about them, not us. And target clients again, that will be the prisoners, either out on parole or serving CCOs. So next step for us is to monitor and evaluate our each session and see how we can make it better. We have to be very careful with our budget because it has been done in the past, so this is the first time that we are doing it or anybody else is doing it. That's why we have allied partners, so we need to make sure that we review time and again. And we also need to find locations, especially if there are, let's just say 4 or 5 of them are in a little bit of remote area, so we need to find a location to go there and do it rather than all 5 of them having come to us. It's a waste of time. So we want to work around that, find more space where we can do it. Remember, it's all about confidentiality, so we want to make sure that we protect that for all of them. And also, we want to gather more information about alcohol and drug dangers and what it can lead to. Because we don't want to go with the general theory like we've done in the past. It doesn't work. So we want each program, the information that we give them is more related to them and their situation rather than just give them generic information. And we also want to keep the program interesting, so we want to make sure we've got a lot of different panels, different people coming in, and different people doing it, rather than just one person over and over again for all the men. It is a new initiative. It can be done. It has been done in Europe. It is new for Victoria, and hopefully we can get it there together. Thank you.